Most of my teachers did know that there was something wrong, but they would talk to my parents because my parents looked like socially good, masking people who were so concerned about their troubled child. I was so shy and introverted and scared and quiet, and I would jump at touch and I would jump at sound, and I showed so many signs of even just child sexual abuse, never mind cult torture. Like my article on the signs and symptoms of cult torture survivors, I had so many of those signs and symptoms. Um, Most people would not be able to put it together. Most people are not educated about cult torture, but I showed so many signs, and parts of me inside were trying to tell over and over in so many ways, because we wanted so desperately to be saved. Like our entire life that we were being tortured, which was most of my life, we were desperate for someone to save us, and we had to save ourselves over and over and over again until we finally got safe. But some teachers were incredibly kind and compassionate. I had two high school teachers who were so good with me, and they heard me and believed me about the abuse that I had already remembered and could talk about, which at that point was just child sexual abuse, like sexual assault, with my great uncle who did not live with us. And that was my first memory that I was able to retain, that folks inside were giving me. And I was able to do that because it wasn't my parents, who I was living in the house with, who told me every day and every night that they would kill me if I talked. So because I was able to talk about him, my great uncle, all the teachers and the social worker and the police assumed that that was the only abuser. And my parents were not offending because my parents looked good. And so they assumed that's where it stopped. And all this trauma and all the ways that I was suffering were just because of that. And they didn't dig deeper, except one time, my high school English teacher, I had a lot of bruises on my arm, but they were self-inflicted because I would slam through the school doors because it was someone inside hurting me. And she said, like, where did you get those bruises? And is anyone hurting you? And I sat there in silence for the longest time because there was so much internal fighting, because some parts of us desperately wanted to tell her that we were being tortured every day and every night and sexually assaulted and trafficked by our parents and by the rest of the cult. But I could not tell her because of all the programming. It wasn't me who couldn't tell her. Everyone, like parts inside, could not tell her. I wasn't aware of it, but I could feel the fighting inside, and I could feel the desperate need to tell her that we were being hurt, but I didn't believe it because I was dissociating it all to survive. But they couldn't tell her because we were being tortured, and had mind control used against us, and they had increased the torture and the mind control because we had disclosed at 13 about the child sexual abuse with our great uncle. So they had increased the torture and mind control, and they started to change how they looked and how they acted with us, so that like they were trying to be softer and give us more privileges, like watching more TV, or like increasing my allowance and my brother's allowance. Like it used to be 50 cents even when I was 13 until I disclosed, and then they suddenly increased it, like they were bribing parts of me to try and think that my parents were good, and they were trying to look softer, trying to hide what they were doing. Suddenly they changed, but my parents still could not touch me except to hurt me. My parents never hugged me and never touched me in a kind and gentle way, except I remember one time when my father was walking me to church alone. I have no idea why. And he held my hand. But that's control. That's keeping me with him. But they did not hug us or hold us ever, or were ever kind or compassionate. They could pretend sometimes. And sometimes they might start to do something like have us on their lap or have us next to us. And then, of course, there's abuse and torture. So teachers did see signs. It's just they thought I was just shy and introverted, or they assumed that it was my parents who were non offending.